Alan in Houston, Texas. Hey, Alan, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thank you. What I'd like to talk about is the Palestinian American journalist who was shot by Israel in Palestine a couple of days ago. Her name is Shireen Abu Akleh. And this is not a one-time thing. This is part of a long history of Israel suppressing the truth from coming out, the truth about the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories. Other examples of this are Rachel Corrie, who was trying to protect Palestinian homes from demolition. She was wearing a bright red safety vest. She was speaking with a bulldoze driver, and he literally bulldozed her to death.
Yes, I remember.
There's yes, sir, of course. There's Dave Miller, the Welsh-British documentary film producer. He was wearing a press bulletproof jacket with the word press, clearly written on it, and a helmet similar to Shireen Abu Akleh, and he was shot by an expert Israeli sniper in the neck between his vest and his helmet, just like Shireen Abu Akleh was. And then all the way back to the 40s, Folk Bernadotte, he wasn't a journalist. He was a UN representative trying to, negotiate peace in Palestine way back in the 40s. And they killed him. They blew up, the Israelis also blew up the King David Hotel to try to
it was Menachem Begin. That's how they, that was how they began the process of getting an Israeli state. Alan, I get what you're saying, and I think this most recent killing is particularly egregious and outrageous, and what blows my mind is that it is not being investigated by an independent agency, that the UN isn't in there looking at it, or one of the organizations that protect journalists, or some international police agency. The country that is charged with committing the crime is doing the investigation, and I have a problem with that.
I'd like to offer that what is important for us as Americans, we're not going to solve this.
No.
But what is important for us as Americans is to realize that we are responsible for this. Unconditional, tremendous amounts of military aid, economic aid, political aid, unconditional. I mean, for example, the U.S. says we oppose settlements on Palestinian territories. This is illegal under international law, and we say we oppose those settlements. No, we don't. You can't say we oppose settlements and then pay for them and protect them and support them in every way possible. Yeah. And so what's important for us is morally maybe speak out, maybe call our representatives, get to know the truth. There's organizations, ifamericans.knew.org. There's Americans for Middle East Understanding. So some of this truth can get out. We're not just relying on free networks anymore.
No, I got it. The danger here, Alan, is that there is a whole organized cadre of anti-Semites, Nazis, and basically Jew haters.
This is nothing against Jews.
No, let me finish my sentence. Who use incidents like this, who try to hijack incidents like this to basically challenge even the legitimacy of the Israeli state. And
I understand.
And so we have to be very, very clear that we are calling for the rule of law. We are calling for democratic institutions here.
If I may, I'd like to point out that there are some of the most vocal, strongest supporters of Palestinian rights are Jewish organizations. Yes. Jews for Peace, Jewish Americans for Peace, Beit Tselem,
JStreet.org.
J Street, Peace Now. So this has nothing against Jews, and even if there are no Jews supporting Palestinian rights, this has nothing to do with Jews. This has to do with the Zionist regime in Israel. And would you allow me just 10 seconds to say something about our own elections coming up?
Sure.
Number one, why is it that Republicans seem to think that the right to life ends when you are outside the womb? That's number one. Number two is, I don't know if we can emphasize strongly enough, what Mr. Trump is up to right now. He is literally working and plotting to overthrow the next election, putting the pawns in place, putting the chips in place, the secretaries of state, I know you've spoken about it at infinitum.
No, you're absolutely right, Alan.
We can go out there and yell it out.
Well, I think people are
overturn democracy in this country. He's going to turn us into an autocratic state.
I know.
And if he gets in for a second term, he's learned his lesson.
And by the way, it's not just Trump. If he, because I think Ron DeSantis will do the same thing. And there's a piece by Rich Lowry in the New York Times today sanitizing Ron DeSantis, which I found particularly horrific. Now, in answer to your first question, which I'm assuming was not rhetorical, the reason why all of these, so-called pro-life people, particularly the ones who are quite wealthy and represent right-wing causes, organizations in the Republican Party, the reason why their care for life ends at the moment of birth is because at the moment of birth is when the real expenses begin. And they don't want to have their taxes go up to pay for public education, for preschool, for health care for babies. I mean, they don't want to have any responsibility for any of that. But as long as that baby is inside, a woman or the fetus, zygote, whatever stage of development it may be, as long as it's there, they're able to avoid the costs.
Or speaking out for the right of everyone's right to life, regardless of race or ethnic background.
Amen. Alan, I got to run, but thank you. It's an excellent point.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for listening to KPFT.